to a soggy and damp Wigram Airfield here for the Lady Wigram Trophy, round number 3 of the 1966 Tasman series. This is a really cool circuit that takes place on an actual active Air Force base and was raced a lot throughout the 60s and before in New Zealand. This circuit was born out of necessity. They tried to do road racing in this area. The local officials didn't allow the street racing to begin, so they ended up moving to this permanent Air Force base and constructed a really nice course out of some of the runways and taxiways and raced here for many, many years. This race in 1966 was a pretty interesting one. The big note of the race was that Jim Clark and Frank Gardner had a coming together at the end of the long runway straightaway. Frank Gardner's brakes actually failed and he careened into Jim Clark, taking him out, and that took out much of the competition, but quite a scary incident. Both drivers luckily were able to walk away from that one. Jackie Stewart took the win from Richard Atwood, so it was once again a 1-2 for BRM in their dominance in the Tasman series in 1966. Let's take a look at the points for my Tasman series thus far. Jim Clark is going for the perfect season. 2 wins out of the first 2 rounds, 9 points apiece. Spencer Martin, though, in second place with 7 points, the local favorite driving a Brabham. And then there's a 3-way tie for third, which I'm a part of, with Richard Atwood, myself, and Jackie Stewart. So it's turning into quite an interesting championship. This will be one of the rounds that could be dropped depending on the points finish for any driver, one of these 3 from New Zealand. But as ever, I want to get a good finish in every race so that the one I'm dropping is still quite a good race in itself. The format for the racing today will be much the same as it was at Leven. We've got some heat racing to get through. 2 heat races, split the field in half, 5 laps apiece. That will determine the actual starting over for the full 14-lap race. The full Grand Prix was actually 44 laps. So let's take a quick look at the circuit. This is a great circuit and one that I'm super happy to have discovered with racing here for this series. So it circles an airfield. The first sector is very interesting in how wide the circuit is, with the hangars and buildings really right next to it. You go into a couple tighter corners and then it really straightens out for the straightaway here. And the main straight of the circuit is actually a runway. So it's the airfield, the Air Force Base runway, super wide, and you work your way down there to the hairpin at the very end of that straight and then complete the lap. So overall, not too difficult to circuit, but there are a couple corners to figure out, and the width of the circuit alone, I think a trait of airfield racetracks. I think of Cleveland and some of the others over the years, but they're all very wide, and that's one of those things you got to get used to racing here. Quite different from the other 60s tracks. The format for this race weekend will be like it was for Leven with some heat racing. So we've got 2 5-lap heat races with half of the field apiece, and that will determine the final starting order for this Grand Prix. But we'll take a look at the qualifying results from practice. Jackie Stewart was the quickest with a 1:20.32, quite far ahead of myself, but I was in second place, so I'm really starting to challenge here at the front of the grid with a 1:21.59, and it's pretty tight behind me with Richard Atwood, Frank Gardner, and Buchanan following on from there. Notably, Jim Clark's pretty far down the order. I don't know if he had some trouble in the practice session or if his Lotus is having some mechanical problems or not, but it'll be interesting to see if he can continue his dominance and come through. He's got a little extra opportunity with the 2 heat races. And the way the heat races will split up, it's obviously odd numbered positions from qualifying in one heat race and even in the other. So unlike the last race, I'll actually be in heat number 2, so we're gonna watch heat number 1. Alright, so everybody lined up for heat 1. This one will be pretty interesting because we've got both BRMs, we've got Jim Clark, but he's starting quite a ways back, so we'll have to see how quickly he gets off the line and if he's able to make up a couple positions. Flag is up. Down, we're underway. Streaking towards turn 1. Remember, it's wet or damp at least, so everyone will have to play it easy. As they come to turn 1, I can see Jim Clark on the very outside there, but very wide circuit here at Wigram, and Jackie Stewart able to get off to a lead right away. Take a look behind him there. Atwood just behind as they'll come past some of the hangars here. Jim Clark all over the back of Buchanan, seeing if he can find a way around. They'll come to a hairpin here. Jim Clark able to go up the inside of Buchanan. The two behind will start fighting. So Jim Clark getting up to third off the line, but Jackie Stewart pulling away quite a bit. So they come through a couple sweepers here and head towards the long runway. So this circuit actually gets onto a runway after this long sweeping corner. And the runway is great, high-speed section of the circuit, but what is crucial is to spot the braking at the end of it. So coming out of the turn, you can see the Hercules parked in the background, just out of shot. The field's strung out now as they'll work their way down the straightaway. So Jackie Stewart in the lead, Richard Atwood in second, and Jim Clark here in third. We'll keep an eye on Jim Clark, see if he can make his way up the inside. Oh, Atwood runs wide. They're going to be wheel-to-wheel here. So coming towards the end of the lap, Jim Clark right on Atwood. He's looking up the inside. Not able to make the pass, but they'll come through the final corner and complete lap 1 of 5. So Jim Clark definitely hunting here, trying to get up front, but Jackie Stewart's going to be pulling away as his teammate holds up Jim Clark. Maybe part of the plan for that team overall. It's Jackie Stewart by the hanger, Atwood, Clark. I think Buchanan's holding on to 4th place there. Oh, and into the hairpin. Clark's trying to lunge up the outside, but that's not going to work for him. And now into the fast sweepers. Clark's right on Atwood this time, so he might get a pretty good slipstream down the runway here. Off into the mist. Terribly cloudy morning at Wigram, but hopefully it'll clear up for the main race in the afternoon. Coming to the end of the straightaway, Clark's not taking a lunge up the inside, interestingly enough. Oh, he runs a little wide there into the hairpin. So Atwood able to hold on to it for another lap. So completing lap 2 of 5, Jackie Stewart in the lead, Richard Atwood in second, and Jim Clark in third. But Jim Clark's all over Atwood. He wants that second position. Remember, the finishing order in this heat is the grid position in the feature, so you want to finish as high up as you can. Jim Clark takes a pretty bad hairpin there, falling off of Atwood. Field getting quite spread out. You'd also not want to take chances in a heat race. The feature race is just this afternoon at Wigram, so you don't have a lot of time to fix the car if anything bad happens. But working on to the runway once again. Take a look at Jackie Stewart leading here. Quite processional. Not too difficult this morning for Jackie Stewart. So we'll look a little further back in the pack. Buchanan engaged in a good battle with Red Dawson right behind him. These two are fighting for the 5th position, which will be 10th on the starting grid of the feature. Gonna come down into the hairpin here. Dawson right behind Buchanan. They'll work their way towards the runway here. Be interesting to see how quick Dawson can be on the straightaway in the slipstream. And it seems like the mist is picking up coming to the end of the runway. Dawson dipping out, but not able to make that move on Buchanan. They'll come through the tight little chicane there and work their way back towards the start-finish line. So we'll pick up Jackie Stewart on the final lap of the heat race, well out front of Richard Atwood. So putting a stamp of dominance down on the grid. Of course, in slippery conditions, so lap times are much reduced, but nobody really spinning off the track or anything. So coming out of the final corner, Jackie Stewart is going to win at Wigram for heat number 1. Richard Atwood in second, Jim Clark coming away in third position. Quite a gap from the front three, but we'll look into the mist. And I think that's Levis there in the 21 car coming across. Buchanan able to hold on from Dawson. Graham Lawrence coming up behind them. So overall, quite processional Heat 1 at Wigram. Jackie Stewart able to get that win from Richard Atwood. 1-2 for BRM, so they'll start in first and third or second and fourth, depending on how quick my heat is. Overall, lap times, though, quite a bit slower in the damp here than practice was. A 1:28 for Jackie Stewart being the fastest lap. In practice, we were at 1:20s, so interested to see how slippery the circuit really is when we get out there. So let's get started with heat number 2. Alright, so here we are on the grid for my heat race. I think in this one, Frank Gardner and Jim Palmer are the two guys I really got to race, and they're next to me. Flag is up. Down. We're underway. Oh, a lot of wheel spin off the line. Remember, it is damp out. We'll come down to turn number 1 on the inside, but Gardner's going to squeeze me as we get going here. I think we're side by side, but the circuit is ultra wide past the hangars, so I'm able to hang there. Oh, and Palmer getting in front of me. Gardner's actually behind, so Jim Palmer in the other Lotus as we'll come down to the hairpin for the first time, down to first gear. Over a couple bumps there, I think some drainage, which is very useful on a day like today. Come through the kink there, now a fast sweeper as we'll head towards the runway. Just trying to get some grip. The car dancing about quite a lot more than you would in the dry. Whoa, running a bit wide there. Now onto the runway. Up to 5th gear, the Lotus right in front of me. We'll keep our eyes for the boards here on the right. Brake plenty early here in the wet. Maybe be able to throw it up there later in the race. Gardner taking a look behind me here. Hopefully his brakes are working well today. Whoa, a lot of wheel spin there coming out of the hairpin. Like Gardner alongside me. Oh, he's able to make the pass, so falling backwards. Down to 3rd here. Another car behind me too. I gotta pick things up if I'm gonna start up front for the feature. So finishing the first lap there, back to 3rd place. Through T1. You go over a little bit of a drainage duct there too on the outside of Gardner. Come down to 3rd gear. This is a pretty high risk corner coming into the hairpin here. Just some av fuel barrels there on the inside, going side by side with Gardner. A lot of wheel spin coming out of the hairpin. Oh, just coming around the outside of him. Don't want to touch wheels. He's got his fist raised at me. Well, you were quite slow there, sir. We'll come onto the runway though, see if I can get a good exit here. Try to come up the inside of Gardner. He's got the favorable line though. I'll dip back in behind him. Coming to the end of the straightaway. He brakes quite late there. Just try to control the wheel spinners, get back on the power. And head to the front straightaway. Complete the 2nd lap, so just 3 more to go in heat 2. Sitting in 3rd, I'm right with him though. Luckily Palmer hasn't pulled ahead too much. We'll try not to over-rev the car there into T1. Try to get back on the power early. Catch Gardner sleeping there on the inside. Able to get around him. He backed out of it quite a bit. Come down to 3rd gear here for this sweeper. Over some bumps there. Around the hairpin. Closing up on the back of Palmer. Whoa, slamming on the brakes there. Try not to hit the back of him. Oh, and just up to the edge of the grass. So we'll make our way onto the runway again, closing in nicely on Palmer here. He's got some good straight line speed. We'll come to the end of the straightaway, see if I can maybe get up the inside, brake a bit later than him. Oh, locking up the wheels. Have to hold it nice and close to make sure I don't run wide. He's gonna try to come back on me. Oh, I just see him there. He have his fist raised at me too. Everybody is not happy with Richie today. Come through the final corner across the line. Just a couple more laps then. It is just a qualifying race, but it's exactly what it means. I got to start up front, but able to get around Palmer there, around the outside. Come down to the hairpin, down to first gear. Palmer right behind me. Just try not to hit those tires on the inside of the circuit. They'll absolutely destroy your suspension. The car coming into its own now is breaking away into the lead. The wet conditions here in Grand Prix Legends, they're done with a wet mod. Adds in the fog and it reduces the grip on the circuit. It's quite convincing. It's actually very well done. Oh, locking up the brakes at the end of the straightaway. Broke quite a bit later than I should have there. We'll come to the start finish, check my pit board, but I think it's just one more lap to go. Down to third gear there. Come past the pits, past the start finish line. All the fans, luckily here in the wet. And past the hangar buildings, a couple hay bales there on the inside in case you go a bit wide. So through the hairpin one more time here. Up the gears to fourth, just half throttle, just try to make the car stick. In the dry, a little easier to go full throttle there. Try not to run wide onto the runway. Whoa, right against the grass. We'll run down the runway though. Braking all the way from fifth to first. Around the tight hairpin there. So there we come into the final corner. Just take it nice and easy here. Flag waving. It's just a heat race, but happy to get the win there. We'll have to see how quick this heat was compared to the other one, and that will determine who starts on the pole. But that bodes very well for the feature race. But I do know those two BRMs who are in the other heat race, Jackie Stewart, Richard Atwood, they're the quick cars to beat, along with Jim Clark. So I didn't exactly get to face off against the quickest of the quick. Here comes Palmer around my outside. So taking a look at the final results from heat number 2, Richie Axelson gets the win. That's what I like to see. Ahead of Jim Palmer and Frank Gardner. Put up a good battle there for a couple of laps, but was able to pull a 5-second lead on them at the end of the race. Spencer Martin finishing in 4th position. So luckily the sun has come out here at Wigram to start our feature race, 14 laps. But we'll take a look at the starting grid and Richie Axelson on the pole. That's what I want to see. After that heat win, we had the faster of the two heats. Maybe the rain was clearing up a little bit and was able to get a little more grip down. But so starting on the pole alongside Jackie Stewart, Jim Palmer, Richard Atwood. So it'll be an interesting run down to the first corner with especially how wide it is and how much we can fan out. Second row we'll have Frank Gardner, Jim Clark, and Spencer Martin. So none of them are slouches either. So I think any of the front two rows have a shot to win. It's a little bit longer of a race, obviously, than the heats, so we'll have to try to buy bide our time, make sure we don't make any crazy moves out of the start. So let's get started with this round number 3 of the Tasman series here for the Lady Wigram Trophy. So here we are on the grid. No cars in front, but I got a good field next to me here. Jackie Stewart there. Flag is up. Down, we're underway. Getting a good start off the line as we'll come to T1. Oh, and Jim Palmer, Richard Atwood there coming up the outside. So we'll come now past, I think, the air control tower, the hangars. Down to third gear, long right-hander here. Into the hairpin, down to first. Whoa, Atwood going out wide. Maybe letting me by. I'll take the position. Oh, a lot of wheel spin come through the kink there. And now we'll head to a couple of fast corners. Up to fourth gear. So I think Jim Palmer in front of me instead of Jim Clark. Interestingly enough, his Lotus working a bit better here. But we'll get onto the runway. You can see so much more in the dry conditions. Fast as we can go, come right before the 200 marker, braking all the way from 5th to 1st. Running a little wide there through that chicane. But back up to 4th, so coming through to complete the first lap, got away here pretty well. Oh, in second place behind Palmer in the Lotus. Down to third, luckily not making any contact there off the start. The track here is just so wide, there's a lot of room to move around, but also a lot of room not to know where other cars are. It's quite easy to lose cars in your blind spots. Come down to third gear, very easy to overdo it through that corner. Down to first, come sliding it through the hairpin. Second gear there, just try to ease it on through. Up to 4th, keeping it 4th for this corner. You want that extra torque to help turn the car, just to breathe at the throttle. Then up to 5th gear. So holding station with Palmer here in the early laps. Go down to 1st, roll it on through, power slide through the hairpin. Slide it on through the last corner, easy to run wide there. Take a look at the pit board. So P2 with 12 laps to go, just Palmer in front of me. But he's quick. He's definitely very quick in that Lotus. This is a bit longer than the other races have been so far with the Tasman series, so it's not super long, but I want to make sure I don't ruin or break my engine. Be careful with the revs. Try not to miss any shifts. Oh, running onto the grass a little bit. It's gonna lose me a couple tenths. And it would be so awesome to see these Formula One cars come onto this straightaway at pretty much full speed. To the end of the straight, then all the way down to 1st gear. Getting all crossed up, but holding on to the car. Come into the last corner. Oh, I'm gonna run a little wide. Come down to 2nd for T1 this time, to see if I can cut it a little closer. So Palmer stretching out in front, not sure where his speed has come from, but clearly his car was not set up for the wet. Come down to 1st, just slide it around the hairpin. The wheel is just a suggestion as to where you want to go with these things. Through the fast sweeper, onto the grass a bit, but staying flat foot. That'll lose me a little bit of time. So trying to brake a bit later for the hairpin, locking it up completely there. Gonna run a bit wide. Well, just really trying to push to catch Palmer. This circuit, you can afford to push it a little bit just because of how much space there is. But doing stuff like that is obviously not going to get me up to him. Come past to complete another lap. Just dance the car here through the buildings. Try to keep this a little more under control. Down to first. Slide it on through the hairpin. Just ease it through there, nicely clipping that apex. Start out nice and wide, just breathe the throttle. Try to get a later apex there like that so I don't run wide. So it might be slightly down on power, I guess, from Palmer in his Lotus. Oh, locking it up again at the end of the straightaway. Tires will not be liking that. Luckily able to make it through there with that. Try to take a later apex here too. Get the throttle on for the front straightaway. So 9 laps to go. Very close to those inside tires through turn 1. Past the hay bales. Just try to slide the car through, keep the speed up. Maybe need to back up that corner a bit to get the exit speed higher, because this is the fastest part of the circuit. Whizzing down the runway. Come to the end of it here. All the way down the gears, a little more organized this time. So 4 seconds behind last time by. I have to think I'm losing time to him. Oh, getting the car all kinds of sideways for turn 1, turning it into a power slide though. Come down to 3rd gear. Down to 2nd, down to 1st. So those BRMs are nowhere today. It's really just the Lotus show with Palmer out front. Onto the straightaway though. Have a decent lead on the group behind. I really just need to focus forward, but not sure there's a lot I can do. Sometimes your competitors are just quicker than you on a given day. Locking up the tires. That ended up actually being fairly quick there. through the final corner. Still 4 seconds, so holding station with Palmer, but I need to be closing up. Just 7 laps to go. So we're just about halfway through this thing. Try to keep it flat out through here. 3rd gear up to 4th. Trying to figure out where I can push the car even a bit more. Trying to back off, get a good exit here. Oh, just understeering so much. Oh, almost looping the car there. Trying to brake right at that 200 marker. Oh, running a little bit wide. Come across the line, 4 seconds as well, so those times, of course, will be from the lap before, but we're pretty closely matched. If I could only gain on him, though. Compromising my entrance there, but I feel like it's better to run faster through the corner before it. Try to sweep out a little wider through that one onto the grass. No doubt we'll be making ruts in the grass there today. And you gotta love the scenery here in New Zealand. Huge mountains off in the distance. These clouds, part of the stormy clouds clearing out, makes for quite the place to race. Down to 1st gear. And I don't think we'll catch any lap cars, but you never know. So still at 4 seconds with just 5 laps to go. So it looks like Jim Clark's gig's going to be up today, but it's going to be the other Jim that's going to come away with it. Locking it up into the hairpin. Might be overheating my tires a bit just from how much I'm sliding them, trying to keep up with that Lotus. Break at the end of the straightaway. This is where Frank Gardner hit Jim Clark. Oh, I'm missing my gear there. That's the over-revving I didn't want to do, but might have to give up the chase here on Jim Palmer. He's just so far ahead. Could hope that a mechanical failure comes to that Lotus, but yeah, 5 seconds then. That was the lap before as well. Try to keep it tight to the hay bales there to get a good run through the hairpin. Run it through the final corners onto the straightaway. Sweeping corners. The track is laid out very nicely. I have an affinity for airport circuits. I don't know if that comes from seeing races at Cleveland or not, but just seems the wide open spaces make for some really cool racing. Down to first gear. Nice run through the final corner. Back to 6 seconds. Just 3 laps to go, though. Whoa, missing gear. Whoa, almost spinning the car out as it grabs second. But luckily I have a good gap behind me. So we'll come through this sweeper here towards the hairpin. Down to first, running a bit wide. Oh, the car all over the track. I think I've well overheated the tires now, sliding so much. Now it's more just about surviving to the end. Marker breakdown to first gear, sliding the tire again. They say Grand Prix tires from this era would last 3-5 races. I think this set might be done by the end of this one. We'll come across the line, just 2 laps to go, 7 seconds off. I got a 20-second lead though on Frank Gardner. Around the barrels there. Oh, car, all kinds of sideways. Oh, getting in the grass. So quite a sloppy drive, but I've had a decent amount of speed, just not quite quick enough to catch Jim Palmer in front. Oh, and I can see a couple cars ahead, so looks like I might catch a couple lap cars, spice things up on the last lap. Can only hope that maybe Jim gets stuck behind them, but I think that's a more of a wish at this point. So we'll come through the final corner, start our final lap, 1 to go. Try to keep a tidy lap here, unlike the last couple. Down to third, keep it to the outside or inside. Looks like I'll catch this red car right at the very end. Onto the runway for the last time. Might catch this car in a bad spot. I was hoping I'd be able to pass him on the runway here, but come to the end. Oh, he's quite slow too. No sense in forcing it, and a whole stream of lap cars ahead. I can see Palmer stuck between those, but it's not going to quite be enough to catch me up to him. Playing chicken there with the number 9. I think that's Hollier. We'll come through the final corner, just ease it on through the apex. So not the race I was looking for, but a second place. I can't be too upset with that. Felt like that was my second place to get in this race today. Just Palmer so much quicker. I tried my best the first few laps there to stick with him, but once the tires got overheated, I really had no chance at all. So we'll take a look at the final results. Jim Palmer winning handily over myself by 6.6 seconds in second place. But second place is nothing to be too upset about. I just wish I could have had that win today. Red Dawson coming home in third position, so Red doing really well there. Richard Atwood in fourth, Spencer Martin in fifth, and Riley in sixth. So I don't know what happened to Jackie Stewart, but we'll look further down. Jim Clark, Frank Gardner in seventh and eighth. Unlike them to finish that low. And Jackie Stewart in 10th. So kind of a weird race overall with those guys finishing down there. But it'll be interesting to shake up the points. Happy to come away with a second then. Jim Palmer coming in first isn't great for me either, but a whole lot better than Jim Clark coming up there. So taking a look at the points, Jim Clark, of course, keeping the lead with the 2 wins, but scoring nothing in round 3 here at Wigram. So that'll open things up a little bit. That could be one of his drop races, though. But I've been promoted to second with 12 points, just 6 behind Jim Clark. And if I look at the drop races, I've got a better option to drop than he does with the 4 points from round 2 there. So round 4 will be quite interesting. Jim Palmer in third position in the championship and Spencer Martin in fourth. So unlike real life, the BRM's not quite as dominant, but there's still a long way to go. Some drop races too, which will tighten things up, of course. So from here, we'll move to Taratanga to round out the New Zealand part of the championship. And that will, of course, include that drop race to see how the points work out for this first half. And then we'll move on to Australia. Hello. Yep, this is him. Oh, Dan, nice to hear from you. Oh, tomorrow. Yeah, but I'm all ready. You have a plane waiting for me here? Okay. Well, Dan, I thank you very much. I'll see you as soon as I land.